Praise the Lord. I thank God for giving us this day and gathering us in His presence. It looks like everyone here is an apostle. They are mentioned apostle, this apostle, that. So, like the house is full of apostles today. And I believe that when men of God gather like this, it's a great blessing. I therefore believe that none of us will leave here the same. Sorry, you won't find me as my usual self for a lot of reasons, but let's take it as it comes. Praise God. The morning sessions are for learning. So we're here to learn, and learning by sharing experiences. So the most important aspect for me is when we interact and not when one person speaks. So realize that the morning sections are for someone to do a presentation for about an hour. Then we have about 30 minutes to interact. Because we believe that God has placed a lot of things in the lives of people that when they share, it's going to help all of us and it's going to take all of us forward. Hallelujah. My speaking time should have been Wednesday. But one of our spiritual fathers who should have started today will come later this evening. So we've swapped positions. My duty this morning is to tell a story. To tell a story. So stories are not difficult to tell. Because it's not an examination, it's to tell a story. My duty is to tell the C5 story. And to tell the C5 story, not like what was there, no, but what we have been part of. So it still makes it easier in saying something that you have been part of. The C5 story is a story of transformation. We are not sharing this for people to cut and go and paste. We're sharing this as a way of showing some principles, okay, that can lead to transformation. How we practice them will differ based on the location in which we find ourselves. So what we pick should be the principles involved and not necessarily the practice, okay? You can pick the principle and modify the practice based on your situation as you find it. So we are telling this story as a bit of a learning curve. And when it gets to question time and you ask questions, then we'll be able to say a little more than I will share here. First, I want to thank God for making us all part of this story. I'll start by saying something about the church was there before we came. So before our time, what we were told when we came to this church, which wasn't here, was that it started in the house of one of the elders in Community 2. At that time, the main church worshipped in Community 1. That's what main church will be at 1. And from what we are told, they realized that no, they needed to form another one in Community 2 because a lot of people were coming from Community 2 to Community 1. And they started in someone's house. It's a clear lesson that certain things can start small. Okay, so we shouldn't despise humble beginnings. Yes, we shouldn't despise humble beginnings. It started in someone's house, and gradually, when the numbers increased, then they moved into the Agri Road School. It was a classroom. And you see, sometimes the move from the house to the classroom was a great breakthrough. You won't see that now. But when they got the permission to be able to worship in the classroom, it was a celebration. Do you understand that? Yeah, in our days, you look down on churches worshiping in classrooms. But when they got permission from the powers that were at that time to worship in the classroom, it was a celebration. And so that was a breakthrough. So we met the church in the classroom. We met the church there as children. Pastor Sampa and some other people here were also there in the classroom. We went through Sunday school into our youth days in the classroom. The classroom wasn't that big, so the church was just made up of some families. And it was in the classroom days. No, let me go by what is here so that I don't. So let me come to what I have on the slides, the beginning of change. So that is jumping, from the classroom to the beginning of change, because change started on this land. When during Pastor Bwedi's time, the church acquired land here and built a temple here. That temple was built in record time. It was between 6 to 9 months the structure was complete. It had never happened in Tema before. It was built in record time. And those were difficult days because we had these PDC people, okay? And this land was a rubbish dump. And when the church acquired it and we had to use it, then these PDC people stood up against it. That they wouldn't, and those were the revolutionary days, PNDC days. So it was a tough one. We had one particular headmaster in this secondary school and some others who really stood up and said no. But we give praise to God that it became possible to still keep this land. There was nothing here. It was just a dunghill. And we had to carry all the rubbish away and use it for a temple. So the C5 church we hear of today used to be called C2. It was Community 2, but because we got land in Community 5 and moved to Community 5, that's how it became C5. So the church originally was Community 2. And the church had more of youth than adults. When the church moved to this place, that was also the period in which the charismatic churches sprang up in Ghana, and other churches from Nigeria got into Ghana, and their style of worship and messages were different. So we saw the exodus of youth from Orthodox churches and our churches into these new churches. We were losing our youth. That was also the time when we were losing a lot of our graduates. When they enter into the universities, they don't come out as apostolics anymore. They come out belonging to other churches. And the apostolic church in Ghana took a nosedive during those periods. I can't get into the nitty-gritties of all this, but we had leadership struggles and a lot of other things which didn't help the image of the church and got people leaving the church. It was during those times that we realized that the youth in the Community 5 church were also leaving the church for the charismatic churches where they were having services in English, and their style of worship and the kind of people you meet there were the same people you met at your workplaces. So people enjoyed belonging to such churches. One charismatic pastor made a declaration that the C5 church was going to collapse. And he didn't need to be a prophet to say that, because if you saw the trend that all the youth were living, then you could easily predict, as he did, that the church was going to collapse. But we thank God that it didn't. And you know, one day we had a funeral here, and that same pastor came to this church and sat down there, and we made him give the closing prayer in this church. Yeah. The church that he said was going to collapse has become the dominant church in the community, just to make him know that his prophecy was false. But at that time, it looked likely that what he said was going to happen. And, you know, the Committee 5 Presbytery saw what was going on, and they said, no, they should do something about this. So they started thinking about forming an English service. Because one of the things that was attracting the youth was the English services in the charismatic churches. So they said, no, let's have an English service. They were working on that. At that time, through Aposa, Asalam Down had started the first English service in the Apostolic Church. So that was there. And then, I think after them, Odoko also started. So when Committee 5 thought of starting one, it was around the same period that Apostle J.O. Boatin was also transferred to Tema to head the Tema area. He also had that burden that, no, let's start an English thing. So Committee 5 was going to start this as a local church. But when the area apostle came in, he also had a similar vision. So now it was picked from the Committee 5 platform and taken to an area presbytery meeting. Okay, so now the decision came from the area, no longer from the local. And so it was decided, okay, since Committee 5 was ready and has set the stage, let's start it at Committee 5. So then a small committee was formed to take care of that service. So the Committee 5 church was in this building, yes, and then the English service. Let me say it well. It was an English assembly. It wasn't a service. It was an assembly. So the Committee 5 assembly was in this old building worshiping during their normal time, and the English assembly will come early in the morning and close. Then the traditional, will I be right to say the local assembly will also come. So that was how it started. It didn't start as a service, it was an assembly. Okay, so a little committee started, and still from humble beginnings, few people, but coming together. And as you know, it was made up mainly of Aposa kind of youth, because those were the people who were interested in such things. The committee had people like Elder E.B.O. Mills, Elder Isaiah, Sister Dumashi, Elder Chum, myself, maybe two other names that are not coming to memory that quickly, were on that committee. And that's how the English is. So we had two assemblies in the same church building. That's how I said, two assemblies in the same church building. Then after about 1 year running that, our pastor Sampa, who was in charge of the local assembly, went on retirement. So I was then placed as the leader for the two assemblies in the same church building. Do you understand that? So I was a very rich man, two assemblies in the same church building. And that started one difficult thing. How do you have two separate assemblies in the same church building? It was then like a prestige to belong to the English assembly. You can't see it now, but those days it really was. And so the English assembly people had some, how do I put it? They had some airs around themselves. So, okay. And having been made the leader of the two, it now became necessary to put the two together as one assembly with two services. So we had to change the English assembly now into an English service. And this was something we had to indoctrinate people, put it into their minds, push it that we are one assembly. It wasn't an easy thing at all. To push it into the minds of people that no, it's not two assemblies, but it's now one assembly with two services. It was more difficult for the English assembly people to find themselves as part of the local church because they saw themselves as the abrofos of the system. Yes. But thankfully, that divide went away. And we saw ourselves as one assembly with two services, one English and one in the local language. The building, you see, one of the first things, there was no wall. This wall wasn't there, so it was just the church building. And that church building took about up to half like this space, this way, okay? This was bare land. This half was bare land, part of the parking space. So the church building is like this half, this way. Do you get that? Okay. All the land from here to that wall was parking space. It was part of the space outside. And you'll be amazed to know that that land didn't belong to us. The only land that belonged to us was the land on which this church building was situated. It wasn't ours. It was supposed to be parking space for all the offices around us. So it wasn't ours. So we wanted to find a way of annexing that land for ourselves. So we decided to erect a dwarf wall, not full wall. I mean, you can't erect a full wall on something that does not belong to you, but you can dwarf it. So we decided to erect a dwarf wall around it and then decorate it as one step towards acquiring it. When we dug around, started the wall, then those around us went to the authorities and they came and stopped us. It was raining season, so water gathered in the trenches that we had dug. It bred mosquitoes. Then these mosquitoes will be biting us when we come to church. And the older people in the church will be telling us, have you seen young guys who've come? You don't listen to advice. Look at what is happening to us now. Mosquitoes biting us. Who asked you to build a wall? But we thank God He took us out of those difficulties. Gradually the wall was built, and we went on gradually to acquire this land. It was a tough battle, but God gave it to us. There's a particular man in this building across us. He's been, I don't know, like a Philistine to Israel. No. But we thank God that victory belongs to Jesus. Hallelujah. So, we acquired the land. In telling the story, let me make it full. Okay. Otherwise, I won't finish. So let me go with the slides. When you ask questions, I will answer. The next picture you see is the confusion. Construction grounds. When we got on board again, well, let me say, this is the church in which I grew up, though, from there. But when I came back from university and was working, I didn't come fellowshipping in this church. I went to Community 11 Assembly, fellowshipping there. But when the English church was starting, then we were brought back to come and help start it, because we were part of those who started the asylum down. So I came back here. I didn't come back here directly for obvious reasons, which I won't state now. So when we came back, they had bought a little part of the land to this side of the main building, and the presbytery had drawn a plan to build offices that they will rent part of it and then use part of it for children's service and all that. And as soon as I saw the plan, I told them, please, I beg you, as soon as you build this, we cannot expand the main church building. So please, let's stop it. Let's find a way of incorporating all your offices into a structure that will expand the main auditorium as well. I don't know if you are getting me. Okay, let's go back to the previous picture. Let's go back to the previous one. So this was the church building there. Then to the side of it, which we are not seeing now, they were going to build an office complex, like a 2-story. Okay, so it takes all that land beside this one. So once you take that space, you can't do anything to expand this church auditorium. But at that time, they weren't thinking about expanding this because this wasn't full. This could take about 250, and we were about 200 thereabout in it. So, but thankfully, I was younger, but they listened that let's not build that one. Let's get another plan which will give us an expanded church auditorium and also create the offices that you want to build. And they listened to that. So we got the architect to draw this particular church building plan for us, which had this expanded auditorium and offices all through that they could use. This building was built in 2 halves. It was built in halves. We started half of the foundation this way, half. Because the church building was on this, and we started this half. Because we were looking for a place to worship. If we pull the church building down, where will we worship? We went to some of the apostolic churches around us that please allow us to come for service very early in your building, then we will close for you. They said no. Our own churches, they said no. So we said, okay, now the plan is we went around houses. We went around some houses here to find a place where we could worship whilst we were building, because we had to pull down the structure. Once we didn't get a space, then we said, okay, we will build half of the foundation, flow it, move to that one before we pull down the church building. That's what I'm saying. We built it in halves. We built half the foundation, raised and flowed it, went under it, pulled down this building, built another half foundation, joined it. Yeah. So it was built in halves because we didn't find any refuge anywhere. So that's how. And in putting up this structure, if we had calculated how much it was going to cost us, I don't think we would have started. But we took it stage by stage. I remember when we had dug and spent the first 100 million, nothing was showing on the surface of the ground. I really remember that. Everything was still in the soil. But God has been good. So let's talk about radical changes and decisions. Radical changes and decisions. Things that helped us to move from where we were, to where we are now. One of the first things that's been with us from day one has been our time management. In the Apostolic Church at that time, which is still the same even now, they'll give you a time that service was going to start, and it wouldn't start at that time. But since we started the English service, if we said 7, it was 7. So we've started our services on time. And the reason was that when we're starting, we sat down to ask ourselves that what kind of service were we looking for? And one of the things we said, we wanted a service where people will know when they want to come in, when they want to go out, so that they can go do other stuff. So we're starting service at 7, and then by 9 we are out. And you know something? Because English service closed early, even some people who didn't understand English were coming for the English service. Up to date. Yes. We had to talk to some people and counsel them to move to the traditional service. Because you could see that this person does not understand what I'm saying. But it showed clearly that people wanted a service that started early. And that will also close early, so that they could they could go and do certain things they wanted to do. So time has been of essence to us, starting on time and closing on time. The second thing we had to deal with was the preaching plan. At that time, the area drew a preaching plan for the whole area. So elders will be, placed on the plan to go to places to preach. And as soon as we started the English service, we told them, no, we wouldn't allow you to come and preach here. And it was like strange. But I thank God for Apostle Boatin's life. Because when this issue came up, we went to him and told him that it wasn't going to work. We needed some particular preachers who will preach on particular topics. Those days, they just drew the preaching plan and sent you anywhere. And you could just hit your stomach, and anything that came, give it to the church. Okay, so that was the kind of system we had. And we said, no, we want you to come and talk about this. You must not just have the message, but you must have the English to send the message across. And that was very difficult for apostolic preachers in those days. We had to import preachers from Accra. Someone like Pastor Boama and others, we had to bring them from Accra to come and help us here when we started, because we didn't have enough apostolic preachers who were fluent in English to send the message across without crucifying it. So it was tough. Standing in front of your area apostle and telling him, we can't use your preaching plan. Some elders were posted here, and when they came here, we told them, you won't preach. Yeah, and they went back and reported us. That's how come the issue came up. So it wasn't easy, but it was well. We also realized that we were having issues with having the two services in the same church building. So we decided to move out and build our own church building for the English assembly. And at that time, I remember I went to Apostle Joe Boatin. We roamed the place. Someone had a land at Community 7-4. The owner was in Accra. We went as far as Accra to go and talk to him. But I thank God we didn't move out. Because if we had moved out, we would have been a pure English assembly out on a different land, and this church building would have been the local assembly alone also on this land. But you see, we needed each other. Are you here with me? We needed each other. One thing I have found out is that the English service people, they are the Abrafosem people. Yeah, they are. Abrafosem is what? Yeah, they are the elite, the refined whites, okay? So they don't have much time to give you, okay? They come to church and they have the money. So they can give you the money, they can't give you their time. Then we have the local service people. They are the real, it's like the owners. They take ownership, okay? So they don't have the money to give you, but they will give you their time. Are you here with me? So we got these two hands supplying different things, and bringing these two together has really helped. So when there's a program, you want people to travel, go for a funeral here, go to this here, go to that there. No, the English service people, their money will provide transport, but they will not be there. But those whose money can't give the transport will be the people in the bus to go and perform the function. So I just thank God we didn't get the land. Because if we had gotten that land, we wouldn't be here telling this story. But at that time, we strongly believe, let's move out. We need to be elsewhere. But I thank God that man proposes, but God disposes. One leadership for C5, I've said that the two services were brought under one person. And then I remember the first joint presbytery meeting. That's when I was made the leader of the two services. Then we had to join the presbyteries. They were not presbyteries. The English one was a committee, but we were functioning like a presbytery, and we put them together and then sit in front of my own fathers and tell them about how the church was going to run. My brother James is not here, but after that meeting, he told me that I sounded like a dictator, which I know I'm not. But if he said I sounded like, I think he wasn't wrong too. Because sounding like and being are not the same. Because I don't think I've had any such meeting in my life before, and that's how it was that way. I had to tell them in plain words how the church was going to run, which was very different from how it has run till then. So it was like saying that we close the old door, we open a new door. We are not going to do A, B, C, D again. We are going to do E, F, G from now onwards. That's how it sounded like a dictator, but it wasn't. It's just because Being in the church all this while, things were burning in our hearts. Things that we believed were wrong and things that we believed were right. You see, but until God gives you the opportunity, God will not blame you. Are you here with me? Sometimes we jump the gun. Something is going wrong. You can only pray about it. You can't do much about it because you don't have the authority. You don't have the opportunity to put it right. God is not going to hold you responsible for that. Is that okay? Yes. But when God gives you the opportunity to do it, then you are responsible. So before we were brought into leadership, we'd gone through all that suffering of not being able to do what you know is what God wants done. So you are cooked up by the time you have the opportunity. So sometimes it's good not to have the opportunity early. It cooks you up. It prepares you before time, so you hit the road running. So please remember, I'm not a dictator. That one is important for me. And maybe one of the things that made me sound like that is that I said, for the first time in their ears, I told them, not all elders were going to preach. And that was unthinkable. When did you become an elder? Where are you from? To tell us that not all elders were going to preach. Because that has been the system. Every elder will preach. It was a rotational sort of thing. I said, no, not all elders were going to preach. I remember one particular elder, his wife came around and said, what has my husband done to you? Why is his name off the preaching plan? But the reason behind this was the fact that we sought for excellence, okay? And in seeking for excellence, you put your best foot forward. So not all elders were gifted in preaching. And what I told them at that meeting was that we were going to use everyone in his area of gifting. If you're a great counselor, yes, we are going to use you more there. If you're a great preacher, yes, we are going to use you more there. If you're an organizer, yes. So I told them not all elders were going to preach. That was one of the tough ones. And so we stopped it. And we chose those among them that I believe had the preaching gift. But so that I don't sound like a dictator too, I told them that, okay, maybe I have not selected you. I haven't seen your gift as a preacher, but you believe you are a preacher. We are forming this class of preachers. Come and join us. If you join us, we'll be learning together. And because you are part of us, when we realize that now you can do it, we will let you do it. So that's how we came up with Ezra. Ezra was a class of preachers. So those I believed had the preaching gift, I put them together. And every week we met to to assess the preachings we've had that whole week and make the necessary corrections. So if you preached, you knew you were going to be assessed that week. And then also we had 30 minutes for learning where we learned new things. So that's how the Ezra class came up. Every week, Ezra will meet. We've held it from then till now. But now Ezra has broadened. Initially, it was just the class of preachers. But with time, other departmental heads came on board because it became more of an assessment class than a learning class. And that's the twist that's come now. So head of praise and worship will be there, head of the multimedia. Anyone who performs a function upstage your leader should be there because we assess all that is done. And that has been one great learning tool. It helps us not to carry on our mistakes from one week to the other. So mistakes we make this week are dealt with so that next week no one repeats them. So Ezra has been a great blessing. The only thing is that Ezra is not a comfortable class. It's not a comfortable class at all. When you finish preaching, you go and sit in Ezra, and they keep coming at you left and right. Hey, you said this, it wasn't right. You said this, it wasn't right. It's not comfortable. It hits your skin, but it helps you. Are you here with me? It helps you. It improves you. Because you see, when you are communicating, there are ways you do things and say things. It's those at the receiving end who can tell you what they are receiving. So when that feedback gets to you, it helps you in many ways. So Ezra is still on. It's still not comfortable at all, but it's still on. One of the other changes, which was also a battle, was asking the presbytery to move from the platform to the side. Apostolic churches, we sit on the platform. We sit here. Okay, and then we pastor the church from the platform. That's apostolic. Are you here with me? But then, when we started the English service, we started using projectors. Okay, so when you are using projectors, you are projecting onto the screen. And when you are projecting and people on the platform, how can they see? So one of the reasons for asking that, no, let's move from the platform was the fact that we project onto the platform. That was one. Two, in thinking about communication, when you're talking to people, the verbal part of your communication is not as important as the non-verbal part. So, and my face is important, praise God, than my back. So if all you can see is my back, are you part of the audience I'm talking to? Are you here with me? So the projector was one. Better ways of communicating was the other. And the third one was a negative one. Some elders were sleeping on the platform. So we said, okay, let's move to the side. Okay. But the main issue was the projection. So I've given it in the order. Projection is 1, 2, communication methods, and then 3, the negatives of sleeping. So we moved to the side. One elder left the church. He said, once we've moved from the platform, the Holy Ghost has left the church. He left, went roaming in other locales. After some years, he came back. I won't continue that story. I didn't check the time I started, so I don't know where I am. When did I start, Prince? I started 10 past. Then I'm almost in my hour. So I'll jump certain things quickly. So certain things we did. Growing church with a process and not programs. At that time, we realized that what most of the churches were doing was just having programs and programs and programs and programs. No, we said, no, you don't grow a church with programs, you grow a church with a process. I can't explain that. But the other thing was the prayer team. For me, the prayer team was a very important part of the church. So I took charge of it for the initial part of growing this church until I was sure that they were solid on the ground. How solid, I can't tell now, but That was what was in my mind now. The church was called a refugee camp at that time. Some of the people who were sacked from their locales found refuge at Committee 5. Yes. Especially some instrumentalists. Some of them are here now. They are so polished, those churches want them back. They can't have them. They sacked them. We took them, polished them. Now they want them back. They can't have them. So we were called a refugee camp at that time. One difference between us and the other churches was also that we were not having that monthly presbytery meetings, which is what we do in the Apostolic Church. We rather held strategic presbytery retreats. And then we rather met weekly for prayer. So we had a long retreat to begin the year, and we could have it mid-year and end of year. So when we meet at a retreat at the end or beginning of the year, we plan how the whole year is going to be like. Do all our praying and do everything. And then weekly we meet, like in this place, presbytery meets every Friday. When church closes by 8:15, 8:30 on Friday, presbytery stays until 10, okay, to pray and to have discussions. But our main planning is done at the retreats. Jubilee Sundays, I don't have time. Excursions, I don't have time. Home cell, no. Tithes and offering, let me skip all that. When your question comes, leadership. Leadership was offered through the presbytery, but we had departments. Various departments. And we realized after time that the departments were not delivering as we wanted them to. And it was difficult going to change someone. So what we did was to place directors above the traditional departmental heads. What it meant was that if this was the youth leader, we give them a youth director as well. Okay. For that person to make sure we got what we wanted. So we placed leaders above the traditional leaders, because in Africa it was going to be difficult to just go and change a leader. I don't know if you get me on that. Yes. So we had the directors, evangelism, let me jump. Our identity, let me still jump. This building, let me jump. Fundraising. Okay, let me talk about fundraising. Fundraising, when we came on, there was something in Ghana or Tema at that time that we really stood up against. Those were the days when churches would be having appeal for funds, and they will take the presbyteries off the platform and bring supporters, okay, up on the platform. And also some of these supporters were people whose religious affiliations were opposite ours. But we brought them to our platforms because we needed their money. In a way, we looked like beggars, and yet we preached our God was greater. It was something that we couldn't take. So when we came up, we said, no, that kind of raising funds was not good. We've never done that all these years. Number two, we've never sent any envelopes outside for funds. We've never. In 20 years, never. What we believed in is that God can do it through us. And if you look at the church now, you won't understand what I'm saying. Let me give you a picture. At the time we were doing this, we were the smallest of all the assemblies in Tema. So it's not that we had strength. It's not that we had rich people. We had, maybe let me say, faith, or we believed in something. At that time in Tema, the assembly that had financial power was Community 11. When you were doing anything and Community 11 said, no, go and pack, you can't do it. That was where the wealth was. 5 was the smallest of them, and yet we took a position and a principle, we lived by it, we defended it, grew in it. So we stopped all that kind of appeal stuff. We raised funds differently. Most of the churches will raise funds and will spend a long time, hey, come and do this, come and do that. We've never done that too. We speak a faith message and allow you to pledge in faith and give you space of time to pay your pledge. That's been our system. We've done that all over the years. When we were building this particular building, we told ourselves that we didn't want a peswa from anywhere. That's strange. Why? We said this is our gift of worship to God. So if anyone gave us a free will offering, we will take it. But we'll never ask for a peswa from outside. So that was, and we used different ways of raising it. We called it different names. Okay? And what we did was that when we need money, we really need a lot of it. So we made you pledge big and gave you time. We could use 8 months to pay. Yeah. And the wisdom in that was that whenever you were raising funds, if you raise funds in January, I'll give you what I have. But if my bumper harvest comes in May, you raise funds in January, I gave you what I had. May, it comes to me, I spend it alone because you are not raising funds at that time. So we gave ourselves a spread so that you could give according to your bumper harvest period. Do you understand that? So we could launch our appeal in February and maybe end it in September. So you will plan how you pay it through. We've gone many. We came to J500. We came to my Philippian fruit account. We came to my Eden River. We've gone now. We are on Melchizedek. Even Melchizedek, we've come to special. Oh, Sikape. And easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. The Melchizedek principle is just to make sure that this church survives. Let me explain it. If you are not going to be somewhere forever, we move. Each pastor has his own gifting. Okay? And I've realized with many churches that they did great things in the past, but now they are not doing anything. And if they are not doing anything, then you will expect that then they should have a lot of money in their bank account. You look there, they have nothing. So how come you were able to do this? And now you are not doing anything, and you still don't have surplus money. It means there's something wrong. So since pastors vary in their fundraising giftings, what we were trying to do was to put something into the lives of membership so that when even we get a pastor who does not know how to raise funds, we'll still get money to do what we are doing. So what Melchizedek is about is that we're putting it into ourselves that when you pay your tithe to the church, also give a similar amount for church projects. And we won't worry you with any fundraising ever again. That's the principle we practice here. So you pay your tithe, also do well to pay a similar amount for projects. And that's what we call Melchizedek. You understand that? So when it gets into the lives of the members, they get used to it. Anytime they pay their tithe, they pay that, it means there will always be money for projects, no matter who becomes the leader of this local church. That has been the principle behind Melchizedek. But that brings the money in slowly. So when we were building this one, I realized, no, this one, it won't be enough. So we got to a place, we said, now, special Melchizedek. We got to a place that we said, what, emergency or rush Melchizedek? Yeah, the money should come quickly. Yeah, so, but thankfully, we are almost there. But the principle is to have Melchizedek in the system. And let me explain this, otherwise you will not understand. In Community 5, we don't worry our members with any kind of fundraising. We don't say we are doing this week, Women's Week, Apostolic Week, GPCC Week, this week. You won't hear it here. We don't raise funds for it, but we pay. Do you understand that? So the members don't go through any of those fundraisings. All those money we pick from church coffers and we pay. We pay all the monies all the other locals pay, but we don't raise it openly because we have raised it already from you through one fundraising that we use for projects and every other thing. We have nothing like welfare dues. No. Everything comes from central coffers. We have, I can't get it on top of my head now, but I think we pay salaries of about 13, 14 people every month, still from church coffers. So God has been good. For this system to survive is a miracle. I think my time is up, so I was trying to run through 5 minutes before question time. Okay, then let me see what is here that I can. Anniversaries have been a blessing. Exofest, what it's done is that when it gets to such times, we bring in other ministries, okay? We bring in other men of God to speak into the life of the church. Do you get me on that? And sometimes you have to spend to do that. And a lot of apostolic churches are scared of spending good things and cheap. In my father's house. Okay, let me talk about that one. In my father's house has been a great blessing. A great blessing in the sense that, let me say what it is and not the problem it is solving. What in my father's house means is that we divided ourselves into the months in which we were born. Okay, so January people are one group up to December. And each month, you work in your month. So when it gets to January, only January borns work in this church. And when we say work, from scrubbing to ushering to beautification is your job. In that month, you are doing everything, cleaning, ushering, getting the place set and doing everything. So it helped us a lot. In the past, we used to buy our own detergents and all that stuff. Now the mans are buying it. In the past, we used to be on ushers. You are not working well. You are not doing well. But when we started doing it in months, then we realized how difficult ushering was. What it has helped us with is that as the church grew bigger, personal contact was being lost. There were people you could meet in town, they'll greet you, praise God. But in which assembly they tell you, come to 5, you feel so ashamed. But in the months, we got to know ourselves. So the months have become more of smaller cells and welfare groups. Because the months know themselves better than the bigger church. So now, if something happens to someone in a month, we mention the month because it's the month people who rally first around that person. So in my father's house are month groups that work in the house, and it has become to a large extent the welfare wing of the church. And if you are here for the first time, maybe I need to announce to you that the best month in this whole world, they know, that's why they are laughing, they know. So I'm not going to mention it, they know. They know. Okay, let me talk about the next slide is talking about I choose to choose. I choose to choose is an innovation that came into our Wednesday services. We realized that no, people were not attending evening services well at all. So we transformed our Wednesday teaching service into what we call I choose to choose. And the main idea behind it was we realized that a lot of Christians made prayer their everything. Everything we just pray and that's the end of it. And we aren't seeing the results to the extent that even worldly people are making greater progress than Christians. See, God has given man something and it is called choice. Choice. So what you choose to do is important. You must choose it and you must do it. So what we were trying to bring in is that after you have prayed, there are actions that you need to take before you can see progress in your life. So we turned around our Wednesday teaching service in such a form that it became interactive. We will show a short clip of something, then we will speak about it, then we will all bring our minds together. But then at the end of it, we state the decisions that we are supposed to make out of that topic. We declare it, and you are asked to go and do what? And perform them. So that you don't just come to listen, no, but you effect it. Because prayer alone is not enough. Though prayer is necessary in every situation. But when you finish praying, you must act. I hope there's someone is not here who is a male and you've been praying for a wife for 10 years. After the prayer, no, you can even look in now and act. Are you here with me? Is it 5 minutes up? Okay. So I'm told the 5 minutes is up. So we'll use your questions to a book is coming out on the transformational story of C5 because we've been asked this question several times and we think that if we put it in a book form it will help. So a book will come out God willing in the first half of next year. They were working on it to have come out within this anniversary period, but we've realized that it's going to be a rush work, so we've pushed it some months after. And I believe that it will answer some of the questions that we have. So now we'll take your contributions and questions. There are people here who've been part of this story. They can come out with angles that they think are so important that I've left out. And if you have questions too, you can bring them up. So you can shoot up your hand if you want to speak. I have a hand there. I need a mic, please.
Thank you, Apostle, for the presentation. I want to know, I have two questions actually. The first one is concerning initiatives. For how long should you drive an initiative for you to know that it's going to work or it will work? For instance, maybe you may try something within the first year, it might not work. Second year, it's not working. Should you give up by the third year if it's not working? From your experience, what would you say about that? And then the second question is concerning how you're able to come up with these whole ideas. Did you read it in a book? Were you told about it? Did you see it elsewhere? How were you able to know that what we were practicing then in the church wasn't really helping, but what you thought or what you had in mind was actually going to help? If you could also suggest literatures to us, that really helped you. Thank you.
The first one, how long do you practice something before you give it up and know that it's not going to work? That should be a difficult question to answer because it depends on what it is and in which area you are practicing it. Let me give you one example of my frustration. I was a frustrated minister for the first 3 years of my ministry in this church. My major frustration was that I wasn't seeing changes in lives. I preached and preached and preached. I saw growth, but I didn't see change. When I say change, let me see if I can really bring myself to. You see, to see the God kind of life in a person. Are you here with me? To see the God kind of life, that this person has really transformed spiritually. This person has really changed. I was getting frustrated until my 3rd year. Then I really saw spiritual fruit, and that gave me hope. Okay, so I did this for about 2.5 years before I saw real fruit. Unfortunately, most ministers these days don't look for fruit. They look for numbers. Please, please, please. If you don't take care, you people to hell. Okay? You'll be taking care of people in church and you think they are saved and they are not. Be worried. Look at their lives. Look for fruit. If you are not seeing fruit, work on it. Do something about it. Because we live in days where churches have become congregations for various reasons. We must look for fruit in the life of our members. Okay? And that was my initial frustration. So that one it was in my 3rd year that I saw sparks of fruit that made me aware that yes, keep going, it's going to work. Okay. Then the lifespan of something determines when you should give up. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it depends on what it is. It's not everything we've done here that worked. We just don't have the time to go through. No, this has been like an experiment. There are things we've experimented that didn't work, but thankfully, most of the things we experimented worked. And the reason why they worked is that they've been in us for a long time. And you see, when something stays in you, God keeps working on you and working on it. You asked, have I read any book? Almost nothing we are doing here came from a book. And I said almost because I can't stretch my mind. But I've been asked that question before. These were things planted in our hearts when we were children. And it's coming from what you read in the Bible and what you see in the church. That difference is what created a burden in us. Okay. We saw a church that wasn't what we believed it was supposed to be based on what we read in the Bible. And this is how come God turned certain things in our hearts, placed certain things on our minds, and brought us this far. I don't read to find strategies. I read to learn to grow. I don't know how to put it, but I read from writers who will give me something for my heart, not for my brain. I want those who can give me that spiritual culture. Personally, I read from people who were revivalists because I believe in revival. Okay? So I read from people who have achieved what I want to achieve. I believe in a revival because I believe nothing can save this church except a revival. The kind of church we have today, nothing can save it. So I read from such men who can give me that heart worship. Not from people who are giving you methods. Do this way. No, I don't believe in that. So if you want me to recommend people who give you heart worship, I can. Okay. If you have the mic, speak, yes.
Daddy, please, the first one has to do with the programs from the national, particularly with the Apostolic Church. GPCC, National Men's, National Witness. And you were saying that to you, you planned that you didn't do those programs as...
We didn't take the money from the people.
From the people, but you made sure that...
We paid.
You paid.
Yeah.
So, Daddy, my first question is, how faithful were you on that? For the reason being that if it should happen that the program is held on that very date, the amount that you should get, and you not holding it on that very day, but sitting with your people and deciding on amount, how faithful were you to your God, and also the influence on the people? That and more importantly, you might have followers, people who were learning from you too. So how influential in a positive way were you to their lives? The other one is also that...
No, let's take it one by one. Praise the Lord. Yeah, how faithful were we? I don't know what we are calling faithfulness, but on record, we used to pay more than any local church in the country. So, okay. No, that's why I'm talking about what do you mean by faithful? Because what we did was to collect the money that came that week, okay, and give it. But whenever we are giving money that came that week also, we look at what we gave previously. If it's less, we'll top it up. There was a way, you have to make sure you didn't get into trouble. Do you understand me? These things are done for the money that will come. So you want to make sure that you are fulfilling all righteousness at where inspection was being done, so that no one comes onto the ground to see what you're really doing. Yes. So we tried to make sure that we paid down all the rest. Okay, so
my second question was on the strategic presbytery retreat. You were saying that you used to meet, if I heard you right, you meet yearly, then you pray, then you learn and you plan into the things that you want to do in the year. After that, you used to meet on Fridays after church. Yeah. If I heard you right, then with the presbytery, then you also think about the church. So with, I don't know by then how you were categorized as a local or a district, if a district or whatever. My concern here is your report to the area and to the national. How were there some conflicts? How did you manage, if there should be anything or there was anything like that? So
there's a report you are supposed to write. A report, you can write it. I don't know if you get me on that. You can write your report. You can give your statistics. You can do all that. So those things can be done. And please, what I'm saying here, that's what I'm saying. What you learn is the principle, okay? Practice can be turned around anyway. What has helped us with our weekly meetings is that information flow is fluid. We are all on the same page almost at any time. before WhatsApp came. Now, some people don't meet, but because of WhatsApp, they are on the same page almost every time, yes. So, and I don't see how we can really run this system without weekly meetings. I don't. There'll be a lot of conflict. You see, when we are not meeting frequently, then those close to the leader will have information that others don't have. And you see, information is power. Okay? Yeah, so these are things that you have to watch. Okay. The next person. Yes.
Please, you made mention of training and keeping the instrumentalists. And I want you to tell us how you were able to do it, how you were able to tame them, because it is a problem. It has been a problem to some locals and districts to handle the instrumentalists. And I want you to tell us how you did it, because it is still a problem in some places. Whether you use money or you spoke to your transformation messages into their hearts, and they were able to stay. Please.
Okay. If I say that we've been able to tame them, then I didn't say the right thing. Okay, we are still struggling with instrumentalists. We don't have a perfect story, but I can tell you part of our journey. You know, the instrumentalism issue in this nation became a problem because of the charismatics. They will put you on salary, they will give you accommodation and all that. So if you come to an apostolic church and you play and they say, okay, God bless you, then you're gone. So we've lost a lot of instrumentalists in the apostolic church to these emerging churches. I personally have had an issue. The issue of paying you as an instrumentalist when you are a member of the church. I still have a problem. You see, in this church, and I realize I haven't been helping my pastors. Pastors elsewhere, when you preach somewhere, an envelope gets into your hands. If you're in Community 5, you preach, it changes nothing. You don't get any envelope for preaching here. You don't, if you're a member here, you don't get anything for doing anything here. God blesses you. Do you understand me? So, even the one who preached got nothing. And then, when you come and play an instrument, you should be paid. We got to a point, I told them that, okay, if I pay you, then you are not a member of the church. But if you are a member, the person playing tambourine wasn't paid. The person who did that wasn't paid. So why should you be paid? So our way out was that, okay, for those of you who don't have jobs, we will help you to get jobs. So what do you want to do? If it's training, we don't care about the amount. If we are helping you become gainfully employed, it's okay. But to be paying you is a problem. So in our negotiations with them is, what help do you need? Okay, so that you can become a professional in your own right and also play as well as your way of worship for God. So that has been the road we've been on. What we do is to provide transportation, and also because we have many services to provide food. Minchimo akafiomini akakpamble. No, that one I can't say it in English. Yeah, you can't play the flute on an empty stomach, something like that. So it's still been a struggle. We aren't perfect in that area, but we've come a long way. We've hired some people from outside and paid them before as non-members of the church for them to play. Yes, we've done that. But when it comes to real members of the church, we don't want to pay. It gets to some time, because of difficulties, the person has no job or something, we give some little allowance some way, somehow. But our main aim is, let's help you get gainfully employed. That has been our main aim. Yes.
Thank you, Apostle, for that presentation. I have 3 questions. The first one is on your Ezra. It seems to me it's some kind of evaluation and assessment. Am I correct?
Yes.
Then my first question is, before you are assessed or evaluated, are there principles given to those who preach or formula to follow? And then the second question, you talked about do not jump the gun. And being in a place where things are not going right is very difficult not to do that. How did you do that? Because if you had jumped the gun, then God would not have used you in how he's used you. And what advice would you give to those who are frustrated? And then the last one is, when you get the opportunity, you push all out questions. You said God blocked you from moving from this place. How do you know when he's God? And how do you know when to go into warfare against the devil? Thank you.
This one is a thesis. Praise God. Okay, starting. The first one was you just tell me. Yeah.
Assessment.
Okay, right. Ezra. Okay.
Is there a formula or principle?
Formula. Okay. One thing we realized when it came to preaching was that if you don't take care, you cast everyone in the same mold. So we didn't want to cast everyone in the same mold. What I used to tell people is that use your strength. Use your strength. If your leader is a teacher, it doesn't mean that you should all toe his line of teaching. But I taught them a simple way of carrying your message across. There are certain things I don't want you to do. Don't miss your audience. Don't speak over their head. So for me, one first thing I assess is, did you get your audience? Were they listening to you? You can come and stand and joke all through, but at least I'll give you 100% for that you had the attention of your audience. Then when I look for meat, I don't find it. That's another thing. So we didn't give a straitjacket sort of thing, but everyone knew what we were expecting. You had to make your mark. What God gave you to be delivered should be delivered. But one thing I've struggled with preachers is that there is a logic of the mind. There's a logic of the mind. And if you're a preacher and you don't respect the logic of the mind, how can you get to the heart of the people? When you're preaching, there's a way you have to arrange your stuff. Is that okay? There's a line should run through what you preach. You don't keep jumping from here, jumping from there, jumping from there. Get a line. Someone who preach and you realize, no, you had almost all the ingredients, but you made a mess of yourself. Okay? You arrange them in such a way that it makes sense. You arrange them in a way that it creates memory. When people can't remember, they can't do it. Are you here with me? When they can't remember, they can't do it. So in preaching, you try also to create what? Memory. Okay, so Ezra was also a teaching kind of a thing. But we tried not to cast people in one mold. Okay, not jumping the gun is the next one. Okay, that's difficult. It's difficult. But one thing helped us. The leaders who were before us, when we were in the classroom, in the witness movement, we had some seniors ahead of us, okay? That included the batch of late Pastor Kweku John, who is the son of Apostle Anderson, okay? They were the seniors ahead of us, okay? Kofi Abeka, Kweku John, Atta, they were ahead of us. These guys were more gifted, but they couldn't wait, okay? So they rose up against the system. And some of them found themselves pastors out of the church. But if you look at them, their ministries didn't amount to much. So their lives in the first place was a lesson for us that, no, wait for your time. It's difficult. One thing that helped me personally was that APOSA was also an outlet of ministry. Okay, once we started APOSA, it was an outlet of ministry. So I must say that my gift got nurtured in APOSA as well. It gave me the platform to work, the platform to perform, the platform to correct myself as well. But it's difficult. It's difficult. When we're growing up, I realized, I think, early in life that most of the time when we were asked to preach, we were teaching. Myself and Pastor Sampa. Witness week, that was when we get a time to work, once a year. So when we'll come in, instead of preaching, we'll be teaching. Then late Pastor Sampa will tell us, no. Children, when they call you, come and praise God and go. Don't come and teach when adults are sitting there. Then I remember one time, Pastor Sampa got a serious temptation. Temptation. Then when everything was over, his father told us that when you preach big, you get big temptation. So, but it's difficult not to jump the gun, but it's always advisable not to. The whole thing is this: God will create the opportunity when you are ripe. So, when the opportunity has not come, take it that I'm not ripe yet. Is that okay? He says, no one will light a candle and put it under a bed or a bushel, but to put it on a lampstand. So, and the candle itself does not jump onto the lampstand. It's the one who lighted it who places it there. So keep shining till he picks you and places you there. Okay, so keep shining. If you believe you are shining, he hasn't placed you yet. No, you are not shining enough as he wants it. Keep shining, he will place you there. One day, he will. Okay. Then the third one.
When is it God? When is it Satan?
That is difficult. It's difficult. One, it depends on what. When it's space. You see, I believe in prayer. I believe in prayer that if my prayer can't give something to me, it's not mine. See, I held it to a strict sense that if at the time I saw my wife, if there was anyone around her and my prayer couldn't move the person away, she wouldn't be my wife. Do you see how strict it was? I won't use raps. I'll use prayer. Why are you... So, those were the days where we competed, okay? But no, I won't come and say anything, do anything that to make me more appealing. If my prayer can't do it, I won't take it. So, for me, pray. No, prayer and action. Okay, she's telling me that I should balance it because I said prayer and action. So after praying... No, you see, if you want to talk about specifically that, my action will be to be at arm's length. Okay, arm's length means I'm oscillating around. Okay. Yeah, but for me, be doing all that is yours to do, okay, and pray till God opens the door. It's very frustrating that because we are out, we look and talk like this, but it is, when it comes to the church of God, but God has a lot of patience. I nearly said too much patience. Because sometimes you see God's work being messed up and God looks on. Sometimes you can take it, but He's God, you're a man. Sometimes it's, yeah, but that's what it is. Let's keep praying. Yes.
Hello, Papa.
Okay. I think I've been told my time is up, so yours is the last one.
Okay. Thank you so much. God bless you for your delivery. Under leadership, you made mention that departmental leaders had directors. In our setting, the leaders are those, the people you use, the leaders are the people that you have with you. With these directors, were there directors from outside the domain of the apostolic? Were they also paid? And then finally, a suggestion that you are indeed a great role model. If there could be a monthly or a weekly motivational message on the pastor's platform for us to receive, I think it would go a long way to help us. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. No, these directors were in the church. Okay. It's like, sometimes, I think the fault is not the people. It's those of us who place them there. Let me explain it. Sometimes someone is doing his best, but his best is just not good enough where he has been placed. Are you here with me? We place our brother somewhere. He's doing his best, but he can't deliver what we are expecting. We waited and waited. Delivery wasn't good. So other people in the same church that we believe understood what we were talking about and could deliver were made directors, still in the same church. So no salary, nothing. It's still work that we all did for Christ. So no salary, nothing. It's the same. You see, it's the traditional system was there. It wasn't delivering. So, and you've come into the system. You can't come and just change all the people, okay? So then let's create these departments. Let's place directors over them. And so you realize that some of the directors initially were presbyters who understood the passion and the vision you were talking about, that go and deliver this level of excellence where we are talking about. Okay, so please let me thank you for your attention. God bless you.
Hallelujah.